Hey everybody, and welcome back to Mrs. Mummypenny Talks. And got a bit of a change of location. I'm sat outside, which is very exciting. I'm sat outside for the natural lighting to make me look more tanned. And I have another guest with me, as always, but somebody new to introduce today who I've never interviewed before, which is very exciting for my podcast, and also quite new to the social media scene, should we say, Alex?
Yeah.
Sitting next to me virtually is Alex Thomas of Wealth by Alex, which is a very fast-growing Instagram page. And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I really appreciate you having me on.
So, you are a financial advisor, and we are going to be talking about the big question: how do I save for the rest of my life? How do I invest for the rest of my life? Which is a huge question. And we're going to be covering quite a lot, but you explain complicated financial things in a very simple way.
I do my best to explain it in layman's terms. Yes. Yeah.
So
It's my job.
it is your job, but actually, I mean, you need to give yourself a bit more credit because a lot of people talk about those kind of areas in a bamboozling, like, I know everything, you know nothing. And that's not how we should be talking about money, because the basis of it is actually quite simple, and saving for the future can be simple if you just look at it that way. So I think it's brilliant what you do.
Thank you. I agree. There's a lot of technical jargon in the roles of finance, but actually, when you do break it down, it's not as hard as people make it out to be.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't. And I'll be throwing in personal experience and some of the things I do. I'm sure you will as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could just give us a little bit of an intro into like who you are and how you got to become a financial advisor.
Yeah. I'll go through the quick version. So graduated a master's degree, got headhunted and moved to Barcelona when I was 22, and worked for an international wealth manager called the De Beer Group. Worked for them for about 6 months, and the job wasn't as luxurious as they basically made it out to be. It was more of a cold calling role, and if anyone
Right.
here's that's listening has ever done cold calling or any form of sales, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, especially if you're trying to sell pensions to people. Uh,
You
you
have to
know,
hit targets and stuff.
yeah, all sorts.
Oh my God.
So yeah, if you receive a cold call from a 22-year-old asking about your pension, you normally have some choice words to say to them on the phone.
I
So
would just put the phone down.
exactly, yeah, normally after saying a few rather rude words, it didn't go very well. So I stuck at it for 6 months, came back to the UK, but it did really spark a love in finance for me. So came back to the UK, did my UK qualifications with the Chartered Insurance Institute, passed all my exams, and then started working for a company in Oadby. And I've now been qualified for just nearly 3 years and advising ever since.
Are you chartered?
On the way there, I've done an additional exam in trusts. I'm doing another exam now in securities and investment dealing, and I've got about four more exams to do after that, and then I'll be chartered.
Oh, so you're in the middle of it. Okay.
Yeah.
The last time I sat an exam was when I was 24. So I did my accountancy exams. So I worked for HSBC 22 to 24. After I graduated, I went straight into accountancy exams. So it's a long time since I studied.
Well, every day's a school day, though. You still do self learning, don't you?
You're right. No, you're right. And I almost like I actively seek out to teach myself something new every day, whether that be from, the content I digest on social media or, having conversations with wise people. Because do you know what? That was the whole basis behind this season of Mrs. Mummypenny Talks. Because I've got bloody hundreds of episodes out there because I've had a
Hmm.
podcast I used to have a radio show that I
Really?
presented.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in my kids were quite little, so maybe like 8 years ago, and
Hmm.
that's where it started. Like I was like, oh God, I love this, and it's so cool when you can like play music and stuff. And I
Yeah.
was like doing it all myself for a radio studio.
DJ
But
Lynn.
but then I for season two, I was like, because I'm off on a another story here, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that ran the radio station was basically using me for my name and my social
Oh,
media
okay.
following. He wasn't paying me. So for season two, I just sort of said, right, yeah, I'm walking away because I can do this by myself now. But thanks for everything you taught me. And then I just sort of did it off my own sort of mat off my own back. And the quality is getting better and better as I get through the episodes.
Yeah.
Like I'm really happy with this editing tool and studio tool I've got now. I've spent 100 quid on a microphone and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it'll sound really good. Anyway, so the question I was going to say to you was, so your social media, which is Wealth by
Yep.
Alex, is your Instagram account.
Hmm.
That's how I noticed you. Not that long ago. I'm going to say maybe like 6 months ago,
Yep.
and you're very good at engaging in other people's content, and that's how we know who you are. So I think
Yeah.
we've worked out who the good people are in the personal finance world, which there aren't that many. I'm going to put it out there. There really aren't many people you can trust because, I mean, you've got qualifications behind you, so you know what you're talking about. I've been doing it for 11 years and I'm a qualified accountant, so I know what I'm talking about. Just be careful about who you're listening to because all these people on TikTok who are like, invest in this company, invest in this product. They don't know what they're talking about. So please be very wary. Just follow the sensible ones.
Yeah. I think from all the people I've looked at, obviously people qualifications. It's an interesting one. It's a bit like people who go. There's good people who go to church. There's bad people who go to church. There's good people with qualifications. There's bad people with qualifications. There's good people without qualifications. There's bad people without qualifications. You've basically just got to do a lot of due diligence. Try and learn as much as you can yourself, so that
Yeah.
the onus is then on you for what you watch. Because I remember there was a big thing about influencers from the Only Way is Essex and stuff like that a few weeks ago that were plugging
Yeah.
scandals. If you already knew what you were reading was fake, then it doesn't matter if they're plugging it or not and how many followers they have because you know and you've got the sense behind you that what you're reading is nonsense.
Yeah. And what you will tend to spot is we all that those of us that are good, we all know who's good and we all know who's bad. So when I see people saying bad stuff, I call them out. But when
Hmm.
I see people doing good stuff, I'll leave a comment sort of supporting them and saying, oh, that's really good content. So I think that's a really good way to work out if somebody's good is looking at the comments and see if other people with blue
Yeah,
ticks in the finance world are commenting as well. Yeah.
yeah. The only issue I think partly is that obviously you can buy a blue tick now, so a blue tick is no longer a sign that someone is necessarily good or
Yeah.
or qualified or something like that. But also, so many people are active viewers of content and don't read comments. And my partner's a great example.
Yeah.
She will, she'll go to the toilet, and as they do, send me 20 reels by the time she's done. And I'll watch some of them, and I think this is utter nonsense. And then you read the comments, and everyone is there calling out the nonsense. And I say to her, "Did you not read the comments?" And she say, "Oh no, I just watched the video." And if you apply that to finance content, someone could be saying, put your house in trust rather than just leave it in your will, something like that, which sometimes might be right, sometimes might be wrong. But if you haven't read the content, the comments, then you haven't understood the context of the video. But so many people just blindly watch stuff without ever going to the comments, where someone like us could have commented saying, actually, this is when it isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because, but even before the world of social media, like fake reviews on the internet, like how many
Oh,
TripAdvisor reviews are fake? How
I've,
many Action reviews are fake? Like,
I've got a story for you.
think,
So,
go
so when
go
I
for it.
worked at this company in Devere, they had I don't know if I should really say this. They had a full time employee whose job it was full time. Their job was to leave bad reviews on their competitors. That was their full time job, 40 hours a week, to just constantly spam competitors with bad reviews.
That's immoral.
Yeah, so that speaks volumes for the authenticity of reviews that we see online. And
Mm,
you've also got to think about it applies to good reviews as well. companies are obviously going to be handpicking who they choose to leave good reviews. It's not like you send a blanket email out to all your clients and say, please leave me a review, because there's that risk that in every company, 10% of your clients might be annoying clients, and there's that risk that they will leave you a bad review. So
Leave you a shit
we do
review.
pick and choose, don't we? That's
Yeah.
how things are
Oh my God. So basically, everything is subjective. Nothing's objective.
practically.
Yeah, that's
You just
absolutely.
we really have to use common sense in everything, basically.
Yeah, but like, we're totally digressing here, but not many people have got common sense.
Yes, it's not that common, ironically, is it?
Well,
Hmm.
anyway, I've been so this episode is going to go out. I think it's like number. I don't know today what number it is, but it's going to come out in a few weeks, so it'll be
Yeah.
after the election. Now, I've been doing some work with Christians Against Poverty, which is one of the
Yeah.
charities that I'm really close to, and I've interviewed my Labour candidate and my Conservative candidate for
Oh yeah.
Stevenage. And do you know what? They've given me so much time. They both called me and they both gave me like half an hour of their time. And think how busy they are. And in
Yeah.
Stevenage, it's a red and a blue contest. But do you know what? They've looked at my social media. They know I work for the BBC freelance. So they know who I am. They know I've got
Yeah.
influence. And each of them is hoping that I'll come out and say, I'm going to vote blue, I'm going to vote red. And I'm not going to at all.
Of course not. Yeah.
Because it is important that we maintain our independence, which is something really that's true to me. But yeah, it's been so fascinating talking to them both, and one of them, I won't say which one, has shared with me some of the sort of underlying less desirable tactics that the other one has been doing to take each other
Ah.
down. And I'm
Yeah.
sort of like, because they're both men, um, can we not just be a bit more grown up? And I actually said that to the one to one of the candidates called me last night. I was like, you've just got to ignore the dirty stuff, and probably only like 100 people saw it anyway, so just don't worry about it. And he's like,
Hmm.
yeah, but it shouldn't be happening. I'm like, well, it's politics.
Yeah. It's like if you go on TikTok at the moment, there's loads of fake AI stuff being generated about Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak and all these
Yeah,
fake policies that have been made. They're not even legitimate at all, but fake stuff that's been going massively viral and people are believing it. And it'll be like, oh, Keir Starmer's going to do this, Rishi Sunak's going to do this, or not going to do this, and people are just soaking it up because it's all relevant at the moment, and it's all just
yeah,
been pushed out to try and sway people either way, and people don't know who's making it or whether one party is making it to push down the other party, or it's ridiculous that
yeah,
people are using social media to sway these political parties. But
yeah,
that's the way it is at the moment.
yeah. That, do you know what? I think I'm gonna do a whole nother episode on that. Maybe
Hmm.
what is the authenticity of social media, something like that. I think that would be
Yeah.
really good. And if I might try and get somebody maybe from Meta, although that would probably be a bit too subjective. I'll try and
Yeah.
find who's an overall
Maybe someone that's
influencer.
like in the AI space or tech space, something like that.
Oh, now I went on a yoga retreat last weekend, and one of the ladies was an AI expert
Oh,
at
there you
Cambridge
go.
University. So boom, well
Perfect.
done. Okay, right. So let's talk about our big question, which is
Yep.
how do I invest for the future? Now,
Yep.
how we're going to try and structure this is we are going to talk about short term, medium term, and long term. Because,
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not wrong, I'm right. Um, what we're saving for is just as important as what tool we use to save.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also how old we are and
There's
that
so
kind
many
of thing.
pieces to the puzzle. Yeah.
There's so many. There's so many levers you can pull. But yeah, so if we start with short term, and we've
Yeah.
talked about this in a lot of episodes before, but the importance of an emergency fund. So just do me a little spiel on how we should all have emergency funds, or fuck off funds, as another word we can call them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could be an FU fund if if
Yeah,
you leave
I
work, if you get made redundant.
swear. I swear it's my podcast. I can do what I want.
Yeah, you can. So an emergency fund, really, or a rainy day pot, or whatever you want to call it, a lot of people don't have it. If you look statistically, there's a vast amount of people that have less than £1,000 in savings. A lot of people, even more, that have less than 500, and so many that have literally not a penny in savings. So I literally met someone yesterday who is living on the breadline. Their income's £2,000. They're spending £2,000, and they had about £3,000 in savings. But if you consider that their outgoings are 2 grand a month, they've got enough to cover a month and a half's worth of expenses. So if you consider a scenario where they get made redundant from their job, or they're ill and they can't work, then after 6 weeks, how are they going to fund their lifestyle? They've not got any insurance in place or anything like that. They just can't. So that they're the kind of scenarios why you need an emergency fund or a rainy day pot. And of all of them, most people will say is that you want 6 months, but that's normally quite an excessive amount. It is a lot because for that person, that's going to be £18,000, which is just sat in a bank account,
Yeah. Can I just
and
say
it's a lot.
I'm risk averse and
Yeah,
I only ever have 2 or 3 months worth in my emergency fund, and I'm fine
yeah.
with that. My attitude to risk.
Yeah, because for me, an emergency fund is not a one size fits all. People will scream to the hills 6 months, but it's not right. It's actually dependent on your scenario, really,
Mhm.
and actually on how much risk your own life has, if that makes sense. So I would say, I'll give a scenario. If you're, for example, a roofer. You're a self-employed roofer. So
Yeah.
one, you're self-employed. That adds an element of risk to your life. Two, you're a roofer. So you're at higher risk because you could fall off the roof. You're going to be injured. There's a significant amount of risk with being a roofer. You're probably actually going to want that 6 months, maybe even more, maybe even 9 months
Yeah.
of an emergency fund. And actually, if you're in a job like that, you're really going to want to look at something like income protection insurance as well, because
Yeah.
something more serious can happen. Whereas if you're in a desk job, you've got what's the risk? You're going to get a paper cut. It's so insignificant. If you get made redundant, office jobs are they're all over the place. You could probably get re-employed within maybe 3 months. So actually, maybe 3 or 4 months of an emergency fund is actually going to be sufficient. If you're single versus if you have a partner, that's going to make a difference. If you've got a
Yeah.
partner who can support you financially, you need less emergency fund. If you're single, you probably need more. If you have kids, you need more. If you don't, you need less. There's all these different things to factor in. So,
Yeah.
6 months is what people use as a baseline, but increase or decrease it depending on your personal situation. And that's basically where I'll leave it.
Yeah. And personally, what I've done, just because you've said a lot of risk factors there that are actually me, because I'm self-employed, single, 3 children, um, and I've got 3 months, is because I have the policy which you touched on, which is called income protection insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get ill and I'm unable to work, then I pay £40 a month for a policy which will pay out 2.5 grand a month for 2 years on each claim, and that kicks in after 3 months. So it assumes that I burn through my emergency fund, then I can start claiming from this policy.
So, did you say it only pays out for 2 years?
I only get paid it for 2 years, but then I
Yeah.
can submit another claim like 6 months down the line, and I can
Okay,
claim and I've got that until I'm 60, and I'm
yeah, yeah. Okay,
57.
bro. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, realistically, there's not a person out there that shouldn't get income protection. It's just a factor of the monthly cost and whether people can afford it or not, because it's such a valuable insurance policy.
But like, how many people have got income protection insurance? Very low, I
Yeah,
would say.
it's one of the
Very
lowest because it's one of the more expensive insurance policies. Most people have got
Yes.
life cover because of the mortgage, but life cover is normally £7 a month, £10 a month. Income protection, when they think, oh, it's £40 a month, and they can't really see themselves claiming it very often.
But that's age dependent. So like, so for you, your life insurance and your income protection insurance are going to be a lot lower. Like, I'm 47 and I have quite a lot of complex health stuff with, like parents who died early and things. So my life insurance is like 20 or £30 a month, and then my income protection insurance is £40 a month. But then I have an old life insurance policy from when I was 24 that is
Mm.
like a last until I'm 50, which is £6 a month. Because when you take it out when you're really
It's
young,
so
it was,
cheap, yeah.
yeah, it was super, super cheap. So, yeah, but what I will say about insurance products is, because I don't want to go into too much detail, it is quite complicated, and you need a specialist broker to help you with those insurance products. Like, I assume you do insurance at your place.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll cover all types of personal and business insurance.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, you are
Because
right because you can go on a comparison website and buy your own insurance, but
no,
insurances
don't do
different
that.
types can have so many different exclusions, and we've had people come to us before who have bought income protection, for example, had it for 10 years, had an incident, tried to
Yeah,
claim, and then the insurer said, actually, no, your particular problem is not covered, and they've paid 10 years worth of premiums just to find out that they weren't covered.
yeah, exactly,
Whereas,
exactly.
if we had said, if it had come to us, we could say, all right, what particular thing do you want covered? We can make sure that the provider we find does cover it.
Yeah, and there are, I'm gonna say some names here of companies who I've used. So Life Search are a really, really good insurance comparison company, and then Cura Insurance are really good when you've got complex health issues. So Cura have done my life insurance, where Life Search did my income protection insurance, and they are just specialist insurance brokers. But financial advisors and financial planners can organize that as well, but there will be fees related, I have to point out. Yeah,
There's no fees for setting up an insurance policy from an IFA.
no fees. Well, I could just come to you and say, sort out my next life insurance, and you just do it.
Yeah, so the
Cool.
insurance is the only thing that we can still get paid by the provider.
Oh yes, got you,
Yeah,
got you. Okay, yeah. Okay, so right, so we talked about emergency fund. The other thing I'd say in short-term funds,
yeah,
so firstly with your emergency fund, that is what you also use for true emergencies, like the
hmm,
washing machine breaking or the car
yeah,
needing
yeah, the
oil and service.
boiler, anything
Yeah,
like that.
boiler. Oh, don't! I've got to get my boiler changed. Then the other thing for short term is
Yeah,
literally like big things you've got coming along this year. So I always have a holiday pot. So my
yeah,
holidays always for in advance. My eldest son is 17 in November, so I'm gonna
yeah.
have to
Short term, we'd
buy
sort of say less than 12 months, wouldn't we?
yeah. So then medium term, I would say medium term is what would you say, like 1 to 5 years or 1 to 10 years?
I would say 1 to 5 years medium
One
term.
to 5 years. Okay, so what would you
Yeah.
recommend to go in the 1 to 5 years pot?
When it's less than 5 years, it's going to become a lot more subjective because it now depends on your attitude to risk. Because I'll give you an example. My friend came to me wanting to buy a house in
Yeah,
about 5 years. So
yeah,
he was under 39, so the obvious solution was lifetime ISA. And he had two choices. He could get a cash ISA, cash lifetime ISA, or a stocks and shares lifetime ISA. He's got 5 years. What's the
yeah,
market going to do in 5 years? Well, I didn't have my crystal ball with me, so I couldn't tell him. But he's got a choice to make. He can either take that risk that over 5 years he's going to be up, or he can put it in a cash ISA, get a guaranteed. At the time, the interest rates were like 2% from the cash ISA. He could guarantee that he's going to make that, but realistically, inflation was still higher, so he could basically take a pundit that the stocks was going to do better. He did, and
yeah,
actually, he ended up being significantly better off by
yeah,
going for stocks and shares. But he's young; he's 20 something, and he's quite an adventurous person. He does all kinds of crazy sports and stuff like that. So he's got a Land Rover, one of these
He
wild
needs the life
people.
insurance.
Yeah, he needs it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but because of the kind of person he is, he was happy to take the gamble. He knew
So
that
he wasn't risk averse. He was like me, big risk
exactly.
taker.
He
Yeah,
was, yeah. So because of that, and because of the time frame, I think it was about 4 years he was waiting. He knew that he was also getting the 25% government bonus. So even if the value did go down a little bit, he knew that with the government bonus from the obviously this only applies to
bit of a
lifetime
no-brainer,
ISA.
isn't it?
Yeah, he was still going to be doing well anyway, even if the market did go down a bit. And 4 years really, it's not a huge amount of time, but if the market did dip say after 2 years, you've still got 2 years for it to recover. The only real risk
Yeah.
factor is that if on the third year or 6 months before you had a dip, you've not got enough time for the recovery. So it does really come down to your personal opinion at that point. But yeah,
But when you are when you are looking at these products, so we're talking specifically here about ISAs, which is
yeah,
we've got a £20,000 allowance to put into an ISA, and it can be
yeah.
a cash ISA, it can be a stocks and shares ISA, but your limit is 20,000 per
Hmm.
year, which is a lot. Like,
It is, yeah.
there are not many people who max out on their ISAs each year, can I just say? So we're talking to normal people here. So
We are.
for example, put £200 a month into my stocks and shares ISA,
Yeah,
and I've been doing that for 5 years or something.
yeah,
Started off at 100, put it up to 200, and now I've got, I don't know, 12 grand or something sat there. So, but bear in mind that, as I've already said, I am a risk taker, so I'm
yeah,
happy to watch my money go up and down. But in reality, so I've had it for 5 years, Alex, and it's never gone down. And I'm getting, because I'm they're, blended funds with lots and lots of companies, worldwide shares
yeah,
in those stocks and shares ISA. I'm riding the wave of the world stock market, which generally grows over time. Like, if we looked at, say, the FTSE 100,
hmm,
which is, the top 100 companies the in this country, if we look at how they've performed from, say, 1980 to 2024, the curve is like that, isn't it?
yeah. The first is not the best example to use
No.
personally. The FTSE is the FTSE is a bit flat, but yeah, if you're going to look at the S&P or the Dow,
Yeah,
both of which are in America, or even the Nasdaq, something like that, then yeah, they all very much on an upward trend. If you zoom in and look at 1 year, it can be anything like
yeah,
that. If you zoom out
exactly.
to 5 years, it suddenly looks more like that. If you zoom out to
Yeah,
10 years, it suddenly looks more like that. It's
yeah.
the more zoomed out you are, the more of an upward trend it is.
So there's always a risk, and I always have to cover myself and say, like, money can go down and up, which you've already alluded to.
Yeah.
But
You made a really
yeah,
interesting point there. So, sorry to interject, Lynn. Because you said that you're putting your money in every month, rather than just say you've got £5,000, rather than putting the money in at the start and then leaving it to be subjective, because you were putting your money in every month, what you're doing is cost averaging. So you're almost riding the wave, and you're buying at the ups and you're buying at the downs. So that's a really good way to hedge your bets and
yeah,
actually end up buying at what you call sort of like the market average price,
yeah,
and that mitigates your risk. So even when the market's up, you're buying at a higher price. When the market's down, which is not great, but you're also buying the shares at a discount. So it means when the
yeah,
market does recover, you'll recover with that growth as well. So
yeah,
over the 5 year period, that's when you do invest for a 5 year period, purchasing monthly is probably the best way to do it from a risk point of view.
yeah. Okay, that's good. So then that brings me to my next point then, which is if we move on to a long term where we talk about pensions.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what I do with my pension, and you're going to tell me that's not the right thing to do. So I always find putting money into my pension quite a traumatic decision, because I'm self-employed, and
Yeah.
I need to wait to a point where I've got, like, a really good cash flow, excessive cash in my business, and I'll make a
Mhm.
decision at the end of every quarter how much excess cash I've got, and then I'll so say if I've got 5 grand extra, I'll
Mhm.
maybe put three of that into my pension, because I'm like, oh, I can't put the whole five, because once it's in my pension, it's
You
not
can't
going
get
to
it out.
leave
Yeah.
until I'm 57.
You
Yes, 58, 57. I swear.
57 as of 2028. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which is 10 years time. So that's what I always find, and that decision is going to get less and less traumatic as I get closer to 57. and
Yeah.
and the huge benefit of that is I don't have to pay corporation tax on that money that
Yeah.
I take out of my company and put to my pension. So it's so tax efficient. So yeah, explain to people what the difference is between pension and investing in a stocks and shares ISA.
So for you, it's obviously very different because you've got a limited company. So you're getting
Yeah. So
the
just
corporation tax
assume
relief.
don't
But
yeah.
if you were, for
So
example,
assume you're a
self-employed,
person.
or if you're an employee,
Yeah.
well, let's just say you're 30 years old, you're putting your money away. If you wanted to put money into a stocks and shares ISA, the ultimate difference. There are two core differences between investing in a stocks and shares ISA and into a pension. The first one, as you rightfully said, is the access age. So
Yeah.
your ISA, you're going to be able to access that whenever you want. Tomorrow, if you want. Obviously, not prudent to do so because you need it to grow, but you can access it whenever you want. So if let's say you've got your emergency fund, but let's say you had a super emergency, the house blew up, and you needed more money than you had in there.
Mm,
Well, you've got your ISA, so you can use that if you needed to. Or let's say you wanted to upsize the house or something, you've got access to that money immediately. Or let's say you wanted to retire earlier than 57. Well,
yeah.
you can use those ISA
I do.
funds. There you go, me, you and me both. You can use those ISA funds to bridge the gap. So if you want to retire at 50, you can use your ISA money from 50 to 57, and then the
Yeah.
pension money from 57 onwards. And that's what
Yeah.
most clients will do. They'll use it as a stopgap basically to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
But you can't contribute to your ISA until the money's in your bank. So you have to get paid through PAYE, or if you're self-employed, you'll pay your income tax 20% or 40 or 45, pay your national insurance, which is 8% or 2%. With a pension, you are stuck until you're 57. At some point, it's going to 58. So we don't know when that is. It's between 2037 and 2044. That's all the legislation says at the moment, which is unbelievably grey. So by the time I get there, it might be 60. Who knows? All we know is that it's being pegged to 10 years below state pension age
Yeah.
as of 2028, and they'll both continue to rise in the future based on
Yeah.
life expectancy and government debt and things like that.
Yeah.
But when you contribute to your pension, it's not after you've been paid. It's at the point when you receive your salary. So you get your income tax relief. And that's at the marginal rate of what you pay income tax. So that could be the 20, 40, 45%. So, and if you're employed, it can be, if it's through salary sacrifice as well, which is a particular type of pension contribution, you'll also save on national insurance. So you can
Yeah.
potentially get either 28% tax relief, 42% tax relief, or 47% tax relief. If you're in this awful tax bracket between 100 and
Well,
125, you can
don't
get
don't talk about
62%,
the
but we're not going to complicate that. We're
no.
going to keep it for
Listen.
normal people for now. But
Yeah.
the average person is basically going to get 28% tax relief potentially through salary sacrifice
Yeah. Just
on a pension
before we
contribution.
but can I stop you, Alex? People won't know what tax relief means, so can you just
No.
explain what it means?
Okay. So you put £80 into your pension,
Yeah.
and the government will give you back the 20% tax that you otherwise would have paid. So the £80 will become £100.
Yeah.
So whereas normally, if you were paid that £100, you would lose the 20%
Yeah.
and only receive £80. And then you could put it in stocks and shares ISA or whatever. But it's actually reversed. You put the £80 in your pension, you get the £20 back. So now you've got
Well,
£100 in your pension.
I will credit Claire Barrett for this analogy because
Yeah.
it's a really good one. So a pension is like a Boots meal deal. Um, so the actual bit you pay into your pension is the sandwich, but then the packet of crisps is the tax you're getting back from the government, and then the drink is your employer who's also contributing to your
Mm,
pension. So you are winning two ways with a pension. So
yeah. That's very
if you're
good.
ever in a position where you're thinking, I can't afford it, I need to opt out, you need to think about all of that extra money that you're missing out on. And as somebody who opted out in her 20s and is now having to make up for it now, don't do it. Just
Yeah.
really, it's the last thing you should do is opting out of your pension.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. It is. Because
It
all you'll
is
be left with is
definitely.
the sandwich. And what's a sandwich without a drink? It's just a dry mouth, isn't it?
That's why Claire is the person in charge of personal finance at the Financial Times. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, she's very good.
um. So yeah. So, but then the other thing I want to ask, where are we at? 34 minutes. Is that because we haven't talked about property, okay? And I hear
Yeah.
from so many people, um, that I don't need a pension because I've got my house, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
hear
help
this a
pay
lot
for my
too.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you do. And the thing is you always need somewhere to live, or let's say really, really far down the line,
Hmm.
and you maybe go into a care home. Your house is going to have to be sold to pay for that care home.
Yeah.
So it's not enough, is it, to rely on just your house?
No, I mean not at all. If you go right back to the person I spoke about earlier, so her bills were £2,000 a month.
Yeah.
The mortgage may be £700 of that. So yes, once she's paid the house off, she's freed up £700 a month, but she's still got £1,300 a month to pay for. So yes, she owns her house now, but how's she going to pay that £1,300 a month without a pension? Even when she gets to state pension age, which is 67 by the time she gets there, that's going to give her what, £900 a month? Where's the other £400 coming from? If she's got a partner, okay, they're both getting a state pension, that's fine. But
Mm,
what if the partner dies? What if you're single? What if your bills are higher than £1,300 a month? Because for a lot of people they are.
mm,
It's not good enough to just have a house.
yeah.
And as you rightfully said, if you go into care, well, suddenly the house is gone. How are you going to pay for care fees and things like that? I mean, yeah, you can get free care potentially, but don't you want to leave that house to your children if you've got them?
Mm,
Don't you want to leave it to
mm,
someone? You've worked your whole life paying off that mortgage. What was
mm.
it worth if you have to lose it to care fees?
And one thing I want to touch on, because it's from what you said earlier, is about when big life events happen. So you said if your house caught on fire,
Hmm.
um, but the thing is I've had a lot of emergency life events happen to me
Yeah.
where I had to in my stocks and shares, I said. So a perfect example is when you get divorced, okay, and 42% of us are going to get divorced, so that's pretty much half.
Yeah.
Um, and that is such a shock to the financial system where um I mean, I won't go into loads of detail, but I had to give my ex-husband a lot of money. The
Hmm.
equity in the house had to be split 50-50, and I wanted to
Yeah.
stay in the house, so I had to buy him out. So I had to find 100 grand basically. And where do you find 100 grand now?
Yes. Not easy.
It's really not easy. And at the time I had bugger all money. So
Yeah.
in fact, I'd only just finished paying off 16 grand's worth of debt. So
Hmm.
anyway, by the by, but I've got plenty of money now, so that's good. Um, but yeah, it absolutely killed me financially because I was going through a divorce, but I was also going through a remortgage process because I needed to borrow another 100 grand. So I've
Yeah.
now got a massive mortgage, and because I was going through the mortgage process, I couldn't borrow any money to pay for things I needed to pay for. So I had to borrow 10 grand from two of my best friends, which we wrote very detailed contracts, and I
Yeah.
promised to give them the money when the mortgage actually came through. But I didn't know the mortgage was even going to be granted. So they took a
Mm.
huge risk on me. I mean, it did. Um, it came through 3 days before lockdown. Like, you would not believe the
Mm.
luck of the timing. And Santander, I'm hugely grateful to them for
Yeah.
giving me that money, and the broker who helped, because it was the broker who did all the work, to be
Yeah.
honest. So yeah, I think we carry our human nature is to carry on thinking that bad things won't happen. But the thing is they do. We get
Yeah.
ill, we get divorced, people die. I know we don't like talking about it, but my parents died when I was a teenager. People die. So it's just being prepared for those kind of things. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because saving is such a positive thing, and we can have wonderful holidays, and if a car is really important to you, have a nice car if you save for it, and or nice handbags, whatever. But I think we just need to realize with saving for the future that it's about having nice things, but it's also about preparing for nastier things that inevitably happen. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Lynn, and that's such an example of a traumatic experience that we just don't expect to happen to us because
Yeah.
we live life. It's almost like Groundhog Day sometimes. We live life. We go to work. We come home. We eat dinner. Watch TV. Every day almost feels the same, and then in the blink of an eye something can happen. When I was 18, I got hit by a car, and
Mm.
I fractured my spine, my skull, my pelvis,
Oh,
and I was in hospital for a month, and everyone thought I was going to die. And obviously looking at me now, I mean, I'm beautiful. You think it never happened, but not to be modest, but
you
it
didn't
was a
look like
real
that in hospital.
no, slightly different. I mean, I've got scars and things, but you can only see them in person, really. But my mum thought I was going to die on that day. It was really traumatic for my entire family, and
Yeah.
luckily I'm here to tell the tale. But I was a teenager, and
Yeah.
my life was almost taken from me like that. I didn't even see it happen. I don't remember it happening. And like that, anything can happen at any moment. And like you say, we all like to think it will never happen to me. That's the staple phrase. It will never happen to me. And it's quite sad because I speak to people on a daily basis on Instagram, TikTok, things like that, and I'll say, just put a little bit of money away for the future and things like that. And people do say, oh no, it might be dead tomorrow and things like that. Live for the moment. And I can completely empathise because we should live for the moment. We
Yeah.
might be gone tomorrow, but at the same time, there's a very high chance that we might not be. And the last thing you want is to have spent your entire life living in the moment to then to find yourself 70 years old not being able to afford the basics, because that's
Yeah.
arguably just as scary.
Yeah. So I think let's end on the point that life is about balance.
Mm.
We live for today and we have a great time and we do what makes us happy, but we also put some money aside for the future because we want to
Yeah.
be happy for our entire lives, however long that may be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to live till I'm 100, but I definitely don't want to die when I'm 58, like my mum did.
Yeah. Well, life is for living, both now and in the future. I think that's what's important. I think we shouldn't sacrifice so much that we miss out on living now. But we have to just
Exactly.
give up a little bit so that we do get to live in the future as well.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful way to end the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for
For
sharing,
anything
then. I
else,
really appreciated that.
I think it's really important to share personal stories because the thing is there will be people watching and listening to this who have had a traumatic accident happen to them, like what's happened to
Mm.
you, and you've obviously persevered and got through it, and like you're doing really well. So yeah, people
We're
like to be
trying.
inspired. Um, what was I going to say? Is there anything that we've missed that you think that we need to touch on? Just that the regular person, I don't think there is, but
No, I think if people have got questions, if they need help understanding tax relief, ISAs, property, anything like that, they can reach out to either of us and we can explain it to
yeah,
them.
yeah. So, just tell people where they can find you on the internet again.
Yeah, so at Wealth by Alex on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, everything. It's all the same tag.
Cool, brilliant, nice and simple. Yeah, thank you ever so much for joining me, Alex. I really, really appreciate it. I know we talk quite a bit on
Everything.
Messenger, but this is the first time we've actually met in person, isn't it? So,
Yes, I've really enjoyed it, Lynn. Thank you.
thank you ever so much. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening or watching. Don't forget that it can be watched on YouTube. Not many people do, so I'd like it if you went over. And Yeah, I will be back next week. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to my podcast. Then you'll get a reminder of the episode each week. Thank you. Bye bye.